Welcome to Friendly Argument with Andrew Bernard and Jeremy Jones.
Let's do this.
New stuff,
All the tangents.
some politics, booze,
Some more politics.
stuff about Kansas, and lots of cheer scenes.
Friendly Argument is a podcast showcasing conversations that seek common ground across the aisle of American politics, as well as a few laughs. We hope you guys enjoy, and thanks for watching.
Oh, yeah.
I figure this is actually a fairly easy, should be a fairly easy episode because it is our impressions of our conversations with Yali.
Yes.
So let's just, if you're ready, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Okay. So welcome to
Hello.
Friendly Argument
Hello,
with
everybody.
J. Andrew Bernard and Jeremy Jones.
Hello, everybody.
We are friends before we're having this discussion. I suspect we'll be friends during and friends afterwards.
Friends before, friends during, friends after.
Yep. So, Jeremy, we had our first guest on the podcast
Yes.
today, our friend
I'm so
Yali
excited about
Bitan.
that.
Yeah. Yali's a good guy. We met him, technically we met him through work, but it was our work D&D game that started because one person wanted to play, got a group together, immediately dropped out, and then, yeah.
Never to be seen again.
Never to be seen again.
And Yali was
that
one of
campaign
the-
ended horribly for everyone but me, and that's because it can't end. It can't end good, or as long as everyone has fun, it ends great for me. And when I'm dungeon master,
Oh, man. It was an absolute blast. It was my first campaign, and it turned me on to
Yep.
D&D.
There you go. That's how I make all my
There you go.
friends in Los Angeles. Apparently, work in Dungeons and Dragons. All right. So, do you want to go? I spoke with him first, so I can go through my general impressions of our conversation, and then if you want to go through your general impressions of your conversation, and
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm so preoccupied. I'm trying to find the note.
Yeah, I know. I see
notation.
you trying to find your notes there, and I'm realizing yes,
I think I got it.
I have found my page of notes, and my page of notes has not very much on it because we just talked. So I think I'm going first, right? Is what we decided.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so I found that our discussion, I think it was fruitful in that it was the start of a conversation rather than an actual getting into a conversation, because there was a lot there where it was like, oh, we can go off in a bunch of different directions. It was also one of those conversations where I felt walking away from it, there's like maybe a few things I'd learned, but it was definitely one of those places where it's like, oh, I haven't thought through these ideas enough to completely own them. I think I think my idea, I have reasons for believing the way I do, but there's, and it's not a thing I think about all them, like nowhere near as much as Yali does. So yeah,
Totally.
I think, yeah, that was my general takeaway.
Yeah, my general takeaway was similar, but just really positive overall. It's something I never really thought about. It's masculinity was just not something on my radar, and gender as defined by the academic conversation of it, sex versus gender, and those parameters within gender, and it was eye-opening, and it was a lot of fun. Yali's, he's one of the nicest dudes around, but not so much, but we really didn't get to like the political, like where this should be, because that was kind of my general question for him, or overarching question for him was, where is this on your political value system, your priority list? Where does masculinity fall on that? And where would you propose that it would be in America's political value system?
Yeah.
And I asked him that a couple of times, and each time we just sort of, well, this only, I think we were talking more specifically about trans rights at the time. And so it's just such a small subsect of the population, according to what he was saying, that, they're really just looking to be treated,
they're just looking to be treated kindly.
Yeah, just treated kindly. And so it was, yes, I fully agree with that, and but I didn't come away feeling that masculinity on my value system was more important. I thought it was a very interesting way to look at the world. And it was sort of, we talked about it, like the fish doesn't know it's wet. Like I didn't even think about certain things about gender stereotypes, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. So yeah, because I think our conversation tended to be more, I think we agreed that our conversation was more cultural than political.
Great way to put
it. Between at least the way our conversation went is like, I think we both tried to get us into the realm of politics, and then it just became libertarianism versus, I don't know if I could even speak Yali's point. Not to say that Yali didn't make good points. I just don't know that I could argue his point.
Sure.
Yeah, it was
like one. Mm-hmm. I had a question for you based on something. Yali said that because the first thing I asked him was for start with a definition, to be good for me, good for the the listeners, and he said that he kind of laughed. He said there was something that you guys really didn't come up with a
working definition of
a working definition. Yeah. What was that conversation like?
So there was I think it was the specifics, if I remember correctly, were we couldn't come up with a good definition of, I think, trans people, or no, sorry, it was intersex was where we started to break down on the definition.
Oh,
and even let alone like what masculinity was. Because like my working definition of masculinity is it is the male expression of things, whereas femininity is the female expression. But then I'm using the word to define the word, so it is the I think the working, maybe the better way to describe it was the working definition of masculinity was the focus on the outside things instead of an inward focus on people.
More group than individual.
No, it was so much more like where the focus, like I was arguing that my working definition of masculinity, I think, was that broadly speaking, the masculine looks like outside threats, right? Particularly within a community, and is more focused on things, whereas femininity tends to be more focused on like internal relationships and focused on people. Was my working definition, but Yali didn't agree with that definition per se. But like I said, do
you guys talk about the two lists?
The two lists?
Yeah. Like the sort of the elementary school teacher puts up like, these are things a boy does, these are things a girl does. And
I guess I never had that, so is that a common thing that I just missed out on in my childhood, or?
No, I mean, so it came up in my conversation with Yali was that basically, so sex is how you were born, and gender was. What's that?
It's your genetics, I believe, at least that was my understanding of the definition. But yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds more technical. I like that. So sex is genetic, but gender is the societal norms of
the way your sex gets you're the way you're expected to behave because of your sex.
Yeah. And that was kind of our working definition, and that sounds like that didn't even come up in yours.
I don't. It may have, but I may have maybe forgetting parts of it, because I've realized that like I am a general rememberer, not a specific rememberer.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've been recently like listening to this neuroscientist, tangent number one. We basically remember two things from every interaction: the most intense point and how it left. Like the last impression is the lasting impression.
Okay, I could see
That's
that.
kind of how the brain works, I guess.
Hmm.
And people talk about first impressions being important, and they're important, but they're not what carry the day, I guess.
Yeah. It frames the interaction if it may not be necessarily the thing that we actually
There you go.
remember.
There
Yeah.
you go.
So I guess for the sake of, talking, of having a friendly argument, what were some points of agreement that you felt like you had, and where were some points of disagreement that you think you had with Yali?
A lot of points of agreement, few points of disagreement. It was a few points of disagreement because we never really got to that political place with it.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that we tried to breach a couple of times, and I guess we like you sort of mentioned and put beautifully and more concisely was that it's a cultural conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it can be informative. I took something away from it, but I don't know if it informed more of my political value system.
Mm-hmm. Like it didn't necessarily affect your worldview on a core level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely am going to be more thoughtful
Mm-hmm.
in my interactions, and definitely I am more aware that the definition of the gender as defined by the conversation does exist, and it's so crazy that it's as baked into me as it kind of came out. But to sort of give like probably the best example of how that happened, we started talking about, and we just started talking about this, not sort of as a tangent, but handwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about how women are typically believed to have nicer handwriting than boys, and some of them have, and if a girl doesn't have handwriting like that, it's seen as less feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And if a boy has nice handwriting, they think it's more feminine or less masculine. And my dad had like it looked like it was typed out handwriting. And I said, so based on that, I have pretty good handwriting. And I started to say, for a boy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was in there.
Mm-hmm.
So self-conscious. Well, I think for a guy or for a boy, very much I was like in my elementary school brain at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was even like that's how subconscious it was, or unconscious it was.
Yeah.
That belief about masculine and feminine based on the handwriting thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's an interesting revelation to me. I find it more interesting, like, oh wow, what else is going on in my wiring that I'm not even aware of? Then is masculinity going to play more in my worldview or political value system? But that was it was interesting. It was in there for me.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with that. I think Yali and I think we had a lot of fundamental differences, and I think to a certain extent, I think if we dug deeper into it, we would find that we didn't agree on the same premises on a lot of the conversations.
Yeah, that sounded like, what was that?
Well, so I think that I think he had better arguments, again, because this is not a place that I feel I have thought a lot about. But the fundamental, one of the fundamental premises we talked about is having a gender binary a good or bad thing for people or for society in general? And he said no, and I said yes. And I think that kind of informs a lot of the conversation. Now, he had better arguments for why it caused more harm, which is fair. It's not a thing that I'm an expert on. And we even talked about this in the pod or in our conversation, is like, my mind's not going to be changed, but he wasn't really speaking to me. He's speaking to the people who were in the middle ground. And I may not be the best avatar for this particular issue. But I feel like I'm getting on a tangent. What were we talking about before this? Yeah. I had fundamental disagreements with him, whereas you I think agreed a little bit more with him. I think, and maybe this is a place where you and I may agree or differ. Is I think at the end of the day, I think what was important, and I'm trying to say this without being an ass or asinine about it, but I think I kind of walked away with a little bit of this is an important conversation to some people, but I don't know if it's the most important conversation out there.
Yeah. I think this is one of those dichotomy sort of things. I think that it's important as the leader of the world,
mm-hmm.
and as the most sophisticated democracy, we should be having these conversations. It's important mm-hmm. for us to be having these conversations because these are we're the one to do it. We should be leading, and we should be and because we're the most sophisticated, we can dig deeper and think harder.
We have the time and money to actually we have the time and money and energy to actually look at these things, which I can agree with. Like, I think, and some of our audience will hate this because we're agreeing too much, but I think that is correct. I guess I'm kind of at the point where it's like, okay, so that is a thing we can address, but once we get to don't treat we're not going to treat you like terrible abominations, and you're not going to yell at us. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see any reason to fundamentally change society outside of that. And I would argue that's baseline Americanism, but.
Yeah. And I think that willingness to say, we don't think you're an abomination, that says a lot, you know what I mean? And because I do think some of those trans folks, for example, definitely feel that way. Mm-hmm. And certainly have been made to feel that way by, some evidence of that. So yeah, no, I think it's something we absolutely need to be leading on, but is it in the top 10 of did it crack the top 10 of my value system, masculinity in the United States? Not yet.
There's still people starving. So I feel like there might be some bigger issues here.
And we should be so lucky.
Mm-hmm.
If that is like our number one issue, wow, we're doing great.
Yeah.
But we're doing great enough to where we have the capacity to deal with it, talk about it, and be the leader on it.
Yeah. And I think this might be another place where I don't know where you'll come down on this, but I think I disagreed with Yali's, because I would posit that, and Yali can probably correct us, and we'll probably have a corrections podcast after he sees this. But I think I'm going on a limb, and I'm assuming something, that Yali might argue that there needs to be a foundational transformation in our society over these issues. And I don't think that is a healthy idea. Like, there is I think that we've spent the last 6,000 years as human societies coming up with ways to build civilizations. And a part of that is the male-female dichotomy. But I don't think that doesn't mean that there's not room for people who are outside of that male-female dichotomy within a civilization. But I don't think that changing normative behaviors is necessarily healthy.
I hear what you're saying. I based on that, it touched on something else that I think is more in my view, more of a meaty conversation. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that how things have gone for the last 6,000 years shouldn't be how they go for the next 6,000?
I mean, there's always room for improvement. There is always room for improvement. But the thing that I find is, generally speaking, improvement is going to be in the tweaking. It's not going to be in the fundamental shifts, right? Like, if you're building a house, if you have a good solid foundation, but you need a little more room. You're not going to necessarily, well, I shouldn't be making this example because you can correct me, but if you need a little more room, you might build out instead of like tearing the foundation up and trying to replant it with something, or trying to recast it with something else.
Sure. No, I follow the analogy. I just I don't know, because I do think that a more accurate representation of the world, you know, there are just some people that don't fall into those clear cut binary, into that binary thing, and we haven't historically been, they haven't been part of our, I mean, we're still saying how you know, how
well, I
outside of the
think
value system it is.
yeah, I think that they have been. It's just more, it has been less open in the last like 200 years than it maybe would have been in the past. And Yali even mentioned like there are examples of civilizations where there are not, you know, there were like third genders, or I feel like there's one within the native, like indigenous peoples of like a spirit something, I don't remember. I'm not going to try to make the actual example, but I mean there have been, and they're very, it's very much a minority of civilizations, but there have been this, and there's always been, like, you go and read like somebody as mainstream as like Terry Pratchett like 60 years ago, he's constantly talking about people like, and there is that dude who goes and wears a dress, and it's like, oh well, it's a funny old world. So it's like, I think there's been a place, but it's kind of a question of like, well, how mainstream is it?
I mean,
I may have rambled there.
No. I this is something I've heard, like, there's been some art, like some films on this and stuff. Gay is losing its gayness, like it is getting more normalized, and that seemed to be the goal for so long. Now that they're actually starting to, you know, get there, it's like, oh well, that otherness, I guess,
the thing that made us special, we're no longer special. Yeah.
Which I don't know, like, but I love that we're grappling with these things, and I do feel like it is our duty to do that as a world leader, the world leader. The thing is, I just I don't know, I would like to, I think it would be interesting to see if every one of those minority groups, those small minority groups, trans, non-binary, poly, I think was another.
Is poly in there now?
I came up in the conversation. Maybe I'm misremembering.
I'm going to make there's a joke I want to make. I shouldn't make it.
We can make it. You have rapport here.
I have rapport. Yeah, I have rapport with you. It's going to come back and bite me in the butt, like, at some point. I was going to say, like, Mormonism's a part of the LGBTQ company now.
Oh no! I don't think it's like polygamy.
Polyamorous, I think, is what you meant.
Oh, maybe that's the term.
So it's a you love multiple people at the same time. I believe is the definition there.
You know, this conversation with Yali, with you now, just in general, I am so Midwestern. I am just so Midwest.
Just not even on your radar.
Not even on my radar. Yeah.
Well, it might also be a not to like age you, but to age you a little bit. It may also be like a younger person conversation, because like I don't remember this being like when I was in college 10 years ago. I don't remember this being a thing, and you were in college a little bit before that, and I don't think that this was really. I think for our generation, if you will, the elder millennial generation, it was more, I think our version of this was more gay rights than it was like the other part of the alphabet.
Yeah, I think when you might be right, because when I started school, it was LGBT. That was the full.
Yeah.
Yeah, LGB, I think might have
LGB.
been
There
like
wasn't even T in there.
not even a T.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like it's always been LGBT, and when I've been in my zeitgeist, I remember the Q getting added.
I remember the Q
And I'm
getting added.
still not 100% sure whether the Q is officially queer or questioning. And I'm not entirely sure what queer means.
Yeah, you can put Q for queer. You can put a question mark for questioning. You put an exclamation point because we're excited.
Yeah.
So
there's one of them. You're saying one of them's just horny. Got it. Okay.
See, that's something everybody can get by.
So yeah, so every 13-year-old boy is a part of the LGBT, etc. community.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
There's room in the tent for everyone.
There's room for the tent for everyone. Yes.
So, if you are comfortable putting a pin in the masculinity conversation and wait for the flood of corrections, which I'm sure
that will inevitably come. Yes. It was
on the horizon now.
It was the first conversation, guys. Come on. Like, this is touch point. We haven't even, I think we established, we didn't even come up with good working definitions for the sake of the conversation. I don't think we even know what we're talking about. I don't think either side knows what both sides are talking about yet. Or maybe I don't think we know what the conversation actually is yet.
Yeah, I followed, we were able to come up with definitions and talk about it. Academically, it was very interesting, but it was much more of a cultural, even an individual sort of experience conversation.
And I don't know that academic. Go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, I said I don't know that academic definitions are necessarily helpful. Like, I know it is Yali's specialty and it is part of what he's going to school for, but I think when you're having a political or cultural conversation, you have to use the parlance of the general populace.
Yeah,
to a certain extent. So
and if you're working with conversation,
you're working with more broad generalities, broad brush definitions. But yeah. But
it sounds like both conversations were productive. Ours might have been slightly more productive just because we were able to come to.
You probably have a more common parlance than Yali and I do.
That could be true.
Mm-hmm.
That could be true.
I'm willing to put a pin in this conversation. I feel like we will probably, at least Yali and I will probably need to do some more conversations at some point, and we'll find a guest for you to play with.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always interested in playing.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what did you want to bring up?
News. Mm-hmm. I'm really interested in. So I heard a statistic about the election results.
Okay.
70%, reportedly 70% of conservatives or Republicans, or however you want to define it, don't believe that Trump lost the election.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a staggering percentage.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to talk to you, the thoughtful conservative, and see where you were at, where you think they're at. Help me.
Well, so one question, the first question I have is, what was the percentage of like Democrats, liberals in 2016 who thought that Hillary had won? Like, what was the percentage there?
I honestly
I don't know.
I never heard anybody question it. We didn't question the results. We just didn't like them.
Well, I mean, I would maybe quibble with that. I feel like there was a lot of questioning of it, but I don't think that there was.
I think we questioned the electoral college.
I mean,
how the pros and cons of it.
Well,
that conversation.
I think we're both. Yeah, I think we're both remembering things as we remember things. But I will say I don't think Hillary went through as many like legal finaglings as Trump did, or Trump has on it, or maybe they just didn't get reported.
I think we can both safely say.
I think that there were more Trump suits than not. So here's, I guess I'm of two minds on this question, or on this issue. So do I think that there was shenanigans? Yeah, I think there were shenanigans. I think there's shenanigans in every election. I don't know that there was necessarily enough shenanigans to really flip it one way or the other. Do I think that there was a lot of stuff that kind of got buried that might have swayed the election and was maybe not fair that it didn't come out. Like the Hunter Biden thing was being reported on by a lot of different people, but not really in the mainstream. It kind of got quashed there, and the Biden Harris campaign refused to answer questions on it. Apparently the FDA kind of sent Pfizer back to the drawing board like 2 weeks before the election, like they were ready to report. So I mean, there's some of that stuff where it's like, I think there was like some stuff that was malarkey. I don't know.
And just because there might not be a ton more agreement.
Yeah.
I have seen that. I know exactly what you're talking about. I personally don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like but there is precedent for it. They've talked about this for election after election. Certain, I don't know, definitely media, definitely, large corporations, legal proceedings, they keep that under wraps, that like whatever amount of time before the election.
Yeah.
I was surprised to hear about the Hunter Biden stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think it would.
Which is annoying because I think I mentioned it on our podcast.
I remember.
Like I very distinctly remember talking about this issue on our podcast before the election.
But what was it, Rhode Island or Delaware or something?
The laptop and him being under investigation.
Okay.
Either way,
I remember you saying
I only bring it up to express my annoyance because it's the thing. It is the thing that I'm talking about.
I mean, I don't think it would have changed.
It wouldn't have changed your vote, no.
And it wouldn't have changed my vote. Would it have changed the election? My impulse is to say no. 7 million is a big margin. There was a big turnout too. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it would have changed much. I don't know if I like that practice.
Mm-hmm. I think we can agree that the more light is shown on everything, the better. But it has to be, you have to show the light on everything. So you can't play favorites one way or the other. So the other issue, and this is where we'll probably disagree, and I don't know where I actually sit on this, because I don't like that Biden is going to be president. I think it's a very terrible choice for our country. I don't like a lot of the rhetoric that I hear from him and from Kamala Harris, and I don't like Chuck Schumer, what it looks like Chuck Schumer wants to do if the Senate goes majority Democrat. That being said, like a lot of this, there's definitely like enough stuff there that it seems like it could be like a massive amount of fraud, but at the same time, it's like there's not enough like solid proof. And every time Team Trump's lawyers went to court, they like the thing that they were saying outside of court, they agreed with, like they established the facts against it. Like the argument of the case was not even that. And so it's like, well, why are you even, if this isn't the thing, why are you even bothering with the lawsuit? Like you're hyping us all up, but if there's no there, then like, let's move on. Let's, figure out what the Republican Party and conservatism is going to do now. Like, what's our positive argument? Like, yeah, we don't like that our big orange man who punched at the media that we really liked is lost. But if we don't have a thing, then what are we doing, guys?
Yeah.
So I mean, I agree to answer your question more succinctly. I agree with the 70%. I think he might have won. I think that there's enough stuff there that I would at least question. I will always kind of question it, but at the end of the day, I don't know that there's any way to really change it. And yeah, maybe in like 5-10 years, we find out like, oh, this was the biggest scandal in history, but that's 5-10 years down the road. Like we've got to go to war with the armor we got right now.
Sure. And I agree with you that, I've had elections turn out ways that I was not happy about, but you gotta put on your big boy boots and hit the battlefield with what you got, the best of what you have in that situation. Let me phrase it this way for just to make it like maybe it's, was the election legitimate?
I think it was legally legitimate.
Okay.
I think like at the end of the day, like the only legitimate election is at the end of the day, it's a legally legitimate election. And at the end of the day, like the process of law played out. It didn't play out the way I wanted. Was I think maybe the way we got to the starting line, was there some steroids being had before we even got to the starting line? Maybe, but our tests didn't get there, so doesn't matter. The race was won. Can't argue with it after the fact. Now,
go ahead.
I said, now that being said, do I think, okay, do we have to look at like, all right, let's really focus on 2022 and the midterms, and do we start building? Does conservatism need to start giving two shits about the culture? Yeah, I think what we need to and this is a Shapiroism, like the conservative movement has to start building basically news organizations, academic organizations, and culture, and basically Hollywood, so that like we don't get drowned out in the culture. We can't just play in politics.
Yeah, I think I've heard you say that, and I know that friendly argument is a part of that for you, and I think that's good, and I think that the ideas that can stand up to the most will win out, and it might take the rest of our life for some of these terrible ideas to go away.
Yes.
But I'm willing to be here if you are, because I think it is important. And particularly, I really want to tip my hat to you. Do you ever hear people like they'll mix up analogies? Someone said, right off the gate.
I am sure I mix analogies all the time, but yes.
I love them. I love that. But to not do that, I really want to tip my hat to you. You really did an awesome job modeling the thoughtful conservative. And when you changed as the information changed, and as opposed, because it can it can erode someone's legitimacy if they don't do that, because then now you're just dogmatic and you're just I just listen to whatever X person says and the reality be damned. But it really says a lot about you and a lot about your political thought, and it might not be the most popular thought in your group of folks, but I think it is accurate, and I felt similar to you feel right now. I felt very much in 2016.
Yeah, I feel like conservatism is going through a similar angst of what liberalism went through in 2016, particularly coming off of Obama. Like, would I have liked 8 years of Trump to, undo for like 8 years of Obama? Yeah, I would have loved that, but it's not what we got. Thank you for the compliment. Is that how one accepts that?
Sure.
Thank you for those nice words. There we go. That's what it is.
But it's genuine. It's genuine. It's not just nice words, because it was. So I know you have something coming up.
Yes.
So I want to be conscious of that. Do you want to discuss anything else with the remaining time?
Maybe
doing a lot of pen stuff today.
Yeah, I would give a message to like people who agree to the like Christian right-leaning Christian like sphere. At the end of the day, I just want to remind everyone, like, God's on his throne. He's working for his glory and our good. So whatever happens, it's going to turn out all right.
I love that message. That's a great message. With that, our masculinity conversation and our post-electoral college conversation in the books.
Well, we now have to get back to talking about like meta politics.
Our favorite.
I feel like we do a little bit I feel like the show is more meta politics than current politics in general, or at least I think we do a little bit. I think no, we always just end up in meta politics, even when we start with current politics.
Yeah, I think that is good. I think that is good for people to hear.
Yeah. So,
I think that's good for America.
Yeah. At some point, I do want us to start getting into the, working on definitions of what close-handed issues are for Americanism. Yeah. That is a thing that I think we should work on as a show, but we will save that new year. We will save that for 2021 because 2020 has been
the coolest.
Have I talked about on this podcast why Laura thinks 2020 happened?
Yeah, I don't think you've talked about on the podcast, but you should.
Okay, I will use our last few minutes to tell this story, and then we'll sign off. So my lovely wife Laura thinks that 2020 is my fault because so like I've just always worked in industries where like around Christmas you get 2 weeks off for free because basically everyone's like the banks are shut down, most everyone can't do anything. In Hollywood, everyone's like, no, screw that noise. Like Hanukkah takes up 10 of those days, so they're just like, So every year, because I've stopped working, I get massively sick. And so last year, which is the first year Laura and I were together, and Laura and I shared our actual first kisses together. So we were like at this, yay, we can kiss someone on New Year's Eve. And yeah. So
wait, you two were each other's first kiss?
Yes, we were each other's first kiss for various moral. Would I recommend that to everyone? No. Is it a super sweet thing that we get to share? Yes. I'm very happy about this. So that we can get into that at some other time. That's a different story, different conversation. So we're finally at this we have someone we can actually kiss on New Year's. So it's just the two of us. I want to see Post Malone perform at the ball drop and kiss Laura, but I'm in my yearly massively sick. So Laura's just like babying me along, and I crash hardcore at 9:00. God. And so I don't kiss her on New Year's Eve. And because I didn't kiss her on New Year's Eve, she has told me that 2020 is my fault. So this year, in order for the sake of the world, I need to make sure that I kiss my wife on New Year's Eve.
Do that.
Yes. So yeah.
I want to. It's got to be on Instagram. I want to see that on.
I will.
Stories.
I make no promises.
The friendly argument.
Yeah.
Stories. We're on TikTok, by the way.
We are on TikTok? Oh, congratulations to us.
Yeah, we posted on TikTok.
Well done. All right. Well, I've got a thing I have to run off to. So, Jeremy, we have had a cultural and political conversation. 2, in fact. We were friends before.
Friends during?
Friends after.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Have a good night.
Welcome to Friendly Argument with J. Andrew Bernard and Jeremy Jones.
Let's do this. New stuff. All the tangents.
Some politics.
Booze. Some more politics.
Stuff about Kansas. And lots of cheer scenes.
Friendly Argument is a podcast showcasing conversations that seek common ground across the aisle of American politics, as well as a few laughs. We hope you guys enjoy, and thanks for watching.